You're listening to the Believe in Giants podcast with two-time Super Bowl winner Carl Banks and the voice of the Giants, Bob Papa.
And we welcome you to another edition of Believe in Giants presented by FanDuel. Bob Papa along with Carl Banks as the Giants head into the bye with a 2-11 record, 2-11 for the second year in a row. And Carl, we sat through that disaster last night. Mike Kafka spoke with the media earlier today. Joe Shane speaking with the media. You know you're not going to get much out of this. I mean, they're going to play it pretty much straight up. But after all these games against playoff teams, division leaders, quality teams, and blowing all these leads, I think the Giants had built some street cred with NFL fans and Giant fans. Yeah. Man, if they could just close these games out, they're exciting to watch. They're fun to watch. They got these leads. How are they going to close it out? Let's get rid of the DC. Da-da-da-da-da. And then last night was like a let go of the rope. I mean, yeah, it was ugly on a lot of different levels. The defense looked worse. The offense couldn't sustain anything. And, you know, it was just one of those deals where the game flipped in one moment. Theo Johnson's drop touchdown pass. Yeah. Then the coup fiasco. And then New England right down the field, the touchdown. Oshesky fumbles the kickoff. Defense holds him to a field goal. And then the Giants elect to punt near the end of the second quarter down by 20, and that was it.
Well, let me just explain how that happened, Bob. You know, the Giants have played a lot of teams that are, I want to call, for lack of a better term, newfangled coaching philosophies, right? And then they went up there to New England, and they physically got their asses beat, strategically got their asses beat, and mentally got their asses beat. Because you know why? You have a guy that stood on that sideline who, you talk about the Giants let go of the rope. They gave the Giants this much rope because what they did in New England is what he learned how to play football and how he learned how to coach football is what I'm talking about, Mike Vrabel. We're not going to beat ourselves. We're not going to let our limitations be exposed. And we're going to be a tough-minded football team that's not going to make mistakes. These guys, he probably walked into his room and said, these guys are flying high and they think X, Y, and Z. They executed their game plan from special teams through every other phase of the game. Giants, on the other hand, it's all, all hunky-dory, right? We'll go out here, we'll make it exciting. Guess what? Your quarterback runs, he gets his ass knocked off, right? Hey, we tried to tell you, quarterback, don't bring that SHIT over here. If your foot's inbound, we're sending you 5 yards. Oh, and by the way, Theo Johnson, again, must be careful because I am fans of these kids. But here's a lesson. When you want to play tough guy, you better be a tough guy 10 toes down, right? Guy knocks your quarterback 5 yards into the sideline. You come rushing in there. You get a penalty for what? Putting a fingernail on a guy. Like if you're going to rush in to defend your guy, they better be pulling you off of a guy, not running in to push a guy and then you fall back like you don't want to get a penalty. You make the decision to defend your quarterback, then you go defend him. And that goes for all of these other guys who run around here pillow fighting. No, they just knocked your guy 5 yards out of bounds. Yeah, your guy made a bad decision. But if you want to rush in there, you better rush in there and throw a punch. You better rush in there and make the penalty worth it. Because right now, what you did, you rushed in there and did this and still got a penalty. That's not toughness. And they intimidated you. They took everything that Mike Vrabel, that is his constitution. That's how he was raised in this game. He's coaching it, and his players are reflecting that. You look at their play. Don't tell me they got better. They got 11-win talent, right? Center, guard, gone. Center guard gone. You wouldn't know
No,
it.
the guard and the left tackle, they're missing their
I'm
entire
sorry,
left side
guard
of the
and
line.
tackle gone. You wouldn't know it. You would not know it. This ain't no shot at nobody, but your best players were on the field against their two backups. Don't know. Got to watch film. But you didn't know that their guys weren't exposed. Just put it that way.
Yeah, I made this reference to you on the radio during the broadcast last night, or maybe it was during a commercial break, and I said, maybe it was on the podcast too last week, when I said, think about all the games the Giants, unfortunately, over the last 2 years have played without Andrew Thomas. And you always talked about, don't make this a Jenga piece. And the offensive line, the last 2 years was a train wreck when Andrew Thomas was out, right? And what did teams do? They exploited whoever the Giants hit at left tackle.
Yep.
And when the right tackle was hurt, they exploited whoever was in at right tackle. And last year when they had to move Illuminor, they exploited Evan Neal and they exploited everybody else that the Giants brought in. How is it that you go into this game, they got the rookie left guard and the rookie left tackle. Left tackle was the 4th overall pick in the draft. He started every game for them this year. How did it look like they didn't miss a beat? Didn't miss a beat.
Yeah.
Now, Josh McDaniels did some game planning around that, but there were plenty of dropbacks where Drake May could have sat there and eaten a cup of clam chowder since we were in New England last night. Like, how is that possible?
If you guys want to know what toughness looks like, not that fake tough guy shit, New England Patriots showed you just why they are where they are. Like their players start to finish, special teams, defense, offense, they exuded toughness without even having to pump their chest. They just systematically just pounded you. They exploited all of your weaknesses, and where you thought you were tough, they just brought more tough guys to you. Their guys were flying around. You know, our guys were hoping not to miss a tackle, right? They're hoping to improve on last week's missed tackles and not miss as many, right? They were mentally tougher, physically tougher, strategically better. And I just don't understand how, as an organization, is there a kicker's black cloud over this franchise? Like, you can't find a kicker. And I've been doing this a long time, playing and covering this game. I have never seen what I saw from Koo last night. He stopped 2 feet short of the ball. And I've seen kickers slide. I've seen kickers take a divot and still hit the ball. This was the darndest thing. And I'm just like, where are we getting these guys from? Like, clearly that's the slate that has to be wiped completely clean. And just, you better start scouring the college ranks and just create competition, because this mess right here is just not acceptable. But
yeah, I mean, he said on the hold that the ball slipped a little bit. And when I watched it again, that may or may not be the case, right? Which messed up his timing. But like, in the name of Matt Barr, sometimes it ain't perfect. Just kick it. Like, it's like
Lawrence Tynes had some things to say about it too, and he didn't quite mention the ball wasn't perfect. Lawrence was like, oh, let me kick it. No, maybe I won't. It just looked crazy. That operation has to get fixed. But of all the losses, because I want Giants fans to really, really marinate on this. Of all the losses and all the ways that this team has lost, even Philadelphia, who physically did some things, this is what you saw in New England is what a foundation looks like that is moving towards a championship. Like, they ain't perfect, but they were disciplined. They were tough. They executed, and they did not let you exploit their weaknesses.
Well,
that's what your team should look back. Like, Patriots football is back.
Well, it's
that's what
interesting
Patriots football is. Go ahead.
Joe Shane was asked about, hey, we're 2-11. It's not good enough. We all have to do a better job. We're going to reevaluate everything. And, it's not the standard. What is the Giants' standard? And I think this is a legitimate question right now to ask. What has the standard become? I know what it once looked like. I watched you in it. I watched Tom Coughlin have a certain standard and accountability. Vrabel had a quote. I was reading something where he was interviewed, and this wasn't this week. This was maybe after he first got the job or whatever, or during training camp. And he said, look, I was an ass as a player. I played a certain way. I was an ass. I'm paraphrasing. He goes, and as a head coach, I'm an ass. And sometimes I'm the good kind of ass. Sometimes I'm the bad kind of ass. But I'm consistent. I'm an ass. And and everybody around knows what is tolerated and what's not. So, this whole Abdul Carter thing. What is your standard, right? How is it that 2 weeks ago you bench him for the first series because of a disciplinary thing? And how is it that 2 weeks later he commits it again, which cost him a first quarter, which means it's been going on forever? Where was the standard? That's why, Carl, you and I have talked about this. I don't know what they're going to do with their head coaching search, but I feel like, hey, you might bring in one of these hot shot coordinators that names have been thrown around that have never been head coaches. How do you know it's not going to be the same as it's been with new head coaches? It could be Ben Johnson in Chicago, and that's the very beginning of the chapter, because everybody felt that Brian Dable was that in 2022, and you see how fast it turns. Yeah. Mike Vrabel brought a resume and a tried and true standard.
Patriots football is back. You see it, right? It resonates with the standard that was there when Mike Vrabel was there. You want to talk about a standard, right? This is not insensitive to any of you parents out there now. I have young kids. I have a grandkid. My kids are out of their 20s now. I have two that are almost out. Fuck the coddling of professional athletes. Respectfully, when Joe Shane is saying we're dealing with a 21-year-old, yes, you are. When you have a player development department, it's about 5 or 6 people, and I feel for them because they got to deal with these different personalities. This is not an extension. Professional sports, hear me out, is not an extension of high school. It's not an extension of Twitch. So stop treating it that way. You leave Twitch to come into the building, and now you're a pro. You're a man. Don't coddle. I get it. I understand the sensitivities that these guys have to deal with, right? But this ain't, when you walk in the building, Twitch is over. There's no more Twitch. When you can walk in the building and you sit in a meeting and you go to sleep. That's what you do when you're live streaming, watching Kai Cenat. This ain't that. You want to be a streamer, you want to live that lifestyle. The Giants are not financing that. They're financing your skill set. They're financing you to be a great player, to be part of a standard of something. And this is just not Abdul Carter, right? And I know you guys are watching this, but I walk in the building now, everybody's mean mugging me because I said something that every fucking body saw anyway, right? I don't care, right? Be better, right? If I call you out because you made a bonehead penalty that didn't cost your team the game, but it didn't allow you to win it. Don't see me face to face and I say hello to you. And you, whatever. Okay, cool. But the standard is the standard, right? You want to learn how to win.
You're part
I
of
don't
the
even
standard.
care. Take my standard. It's going to take a lot.
Okay. Not
it's going to
you.
take a lot. I understand that. But I'm just telling these young men what it takes to be a pro. You see, look at what New England just did to you. That should feel worse than any other loss that you have on your resume. Even to Philadelphia. Because the New England Patriots systematically dismantled and beat you with a sledgehammer. There was nothing fancy about it. It just looked like old Patriots football. Just good foundation, good discipline, no frills. Their guys just went about it blue collar, right? But that foundation, folks, that started in East Rutherford. That guy who took that expectation and that standard there, he learned it and forged it in East Rutherford. You look like an expansion team compared to what they're doing. And we keep talking about the standard, getting back to Giants football. But then, and I get it, there are sensitivities that you have to deal with 21-year-olds. But there also has to be a line. When you cross over into this building, here's our expectation of you. And ask the young man, any of them, what do you want to be? Do you want to be great or you just want to make some money? Right? I brought you in as a free agent to be a leader of my team because I have a lot of young kids that can learn from you. It's not okay that you made that mistake because that reflects negatively on the other guys. I am the biggest defender of these players, right? But when I defend and I celebrate you, when I criticize you, not that I give a fuck that you mad at me, but just ask yourself why, right? I want y'all to be good. I want you to have a standard. I want you to have an expectation of going into a game, not just wanting to tackle better, right? Going into a game, not just looking not to be as bad as you were the week before, right? That's losing football. You're hoping somebody else makes a mistake so that you can look good. I want your special teams that's normally ranked high to have a sense of pride to want to do that every week.
And not to give up the opening kickoff and let New England start at the 49-yard line.
The coverage teams have been one of the bright spots, but then they decide every once in a while to crap the bed. Chauncey Golston, you've been out for a while. They put you down there. Guess what that big return broke? Smaller guy blocking a bigger guy because you gave up leverage. I just want y'all to take this thing serious because y'all ain't the only 21-year-olds playing in this goddamn game.
Well,
right?
Yeah, that's the point. You can't just say, well, he's 21, he's young, coming to New
Or
York.
Let's take him out of the equation, even though he is the biggest name here, right? But they, right? They of them all, the 20-something-year-olds. Y'all ain't the only ones, right? Every team's got them. Every team has a draft. There is a responsibility. I am the first guy to say Abdul Carter is going to be okay, right? But I need Abdul Carter to say, I'm going to be okay. I'm going to commit to being as great as I can be. I don't need Abdul Carter to continue to jump on social media. Y'all slandering my name. No, you opened that door for them to do that. when your team is out there and you're sitting on the bench with a cape on and you're not even standing up watching them because you're suspended for the first quarter of the game. You're not even engaged. You're suspended, and this is how it looks to me. It looks like you're good until they tell you to come in. You're not even in the game, right? If you're looking at this game, then maybe you can see something that when your time comes, that you can immediately impact it. That's what setting a standard is, bro. They hired you for that, right?
That's an operative word right there. You got hired for that. You got hired for scholarship. This is
right.
Like
you got
you're getting paid.
And let me just tell y'all something. For whatever you think, and we're gonna put Brian Burns in a glass case and hope that it doesn't fog up and he loses his enthusiasm. For whatever y'all said about Kayvon Thibodeau, right? Guess what? The run defense hasn't been as good since he's been out. And every time Kayvon Thibodeau makes a mistake, he corrects it. Kayvon Thibodeau can take criticism without walking around pouting, right? Even a guy like Nacho, he's been called out many times. Walks in the door, you can tell he's like, I'm getting myself together. This is important to me. Y'all need a mindset that this game is important. Now, I get the part where these kids don't know what they don't know, right? Good with that. But there are things that they should know, and there are things that they can control. And when you walk in and you put the controller down or whatever it is you guys do, you're supposed to be part of a solution, not a continuation of a problem. Veteran and young player alike. Your quarterback, his running mate, Cam Scatterboo, they want to be part of a solution, not part of the same old, right? Y'all need to follow that. And they don't know what they don't know right now. Because if he did, he wouldn't have got knocked 5 yards out of bounds. But goddamn it, he's trying. Right? He's trying. I just don't want to hear, and this is public facing talk from the general manager. When he says, well, yeah, he's a 21-year-old. Yeah, everybody's got 21-year-olds. New England's got 21-year-olds too. I don't know how they deal with their guys when these things happen or if these things even happen, right? When you walk through the door, you were hired to be a difference maker. And before you get out of your car, you ask yourself, every one of you, if you were a free agent hire, if you were a draft choice, or you are a guy who just got a big paycheck, what can I do to make a difference? When you walk in that building, your sole focus should be making a difference and being part of a solution. I felt so great about this team in training camp. I'm like, man, this thing looks like it can be something, right? And then the bad habits start to seep in. And then we start to hear about all the other things that are going on. And this is what we get. And then you have your general manager who has to now, I don't want to say cover, because I think there's some nuance to what he says is when he says we're dealing with the 21-year-old. So there's some nuance to that. But the fact that you've allowed your general manager to have to do this explaining for you just tells you there's some growth that has to happen.
Carl,
you can't continue to coddle.
I don't pretend to be Inspector Clouseau here, but if you just use logic, Abdul Carter wasn't late for the first time 2 weeks ago when he got suspended for a series. And he wasn't late for just a second time when he didn't play the entire quarter. My guess is, just thinking about things logically, this has been a pattern of behavior that has been let go because he was the third overall pick and he's Abdul. And that falls on the head. That falls on the head coach. So the interim head coach now is trying to draw a line in the sand somewhere. Like, dude, we're not going to tolerate this.
Well, here's my next question. Why is it okay for the rest of your teammates? I mean, y'all all making money. It's all good. Is this an environment? Right? Because rookie or not, number 3 pick or not, there's strength in numbers. And if all of y'all trying to do it right and this one guy ain't, then there's got to be a conversation with the one guy who's not. Or unless y'all all just say, I'm my thing and don't worry, that's his business. And that's
but maybe we don't know. Maybe we don't. Maybe there were conversations that have been had and it's fallen on deaf ears. And that's where the head coach needed to have stepped in and flexed. Like where the leadership council goes and look, dude, I've talked to him a couple times. It's still going on. It's still going on. You need to do something. You're not his buddy. You're the head coach, right?
Yeah. Because and then what happened.
Yeah. I mean, and here's the other thing.
I mean, Dexter even said it's time to grow up. So clearly maybe that frustration has bubbled to a head where they have tried to have those conversations.
Right. Maybe a bunch of them have. And look, sometimes you have a team that has some really good players, like an Andrew Thomas, who's a Pro Bowl caliber player, Burns, who we watched him practice every day in camp, the intensity in which he practiced, like everything about him. He's a pro's pro. Okereke's had a very good career. But maybe sometimes, they're not necessarily like the voice, right? Like you think, like, what did Dan Quinn do last year? He brought in Bobby Wagner. Bobby Wagner is well past his prime. He's still a good player, but he was the guy that was going to message throughout that locker room what the expectation level, what the standard was going to be for that football team. It's not a coincidence that Harold Landry is a key player on Vrabel's team. He was drafted by Vrabel in Tennessee, like that messaging thing. And I just kind of wonder, like in this situation, if, although these guys are very good players in their own right, if there's not that powerful leader in the room, you know what I'm saying? That just
that's a function of always having to import leadership, right? Now Dexter's drafted by this team, and I'm assuming Dexter does what he can in terms of leadership, right? But the constant turnover, and then you bring a guy in that you want to be part of change, and you bring defensive backs in and they show promise and then they take a step back. Where are your foundational guys, and where is the infrastructure or the structure that you can give these guys to say, this is where we need to be. This is where we need to return to.
But think about this.
This is why you're here.
But think about this. Your foundation, your longest tenured draft pick guys, whether it's Darius Slayton or Dexter Lawrence, they're the guys that are left. How many regimes have they been through? Like, do they really have a foundation? That's in the sense that they've had so much turnover. Right? I mean, Dexter Lawrence started. Pat Shurmur was the head coach, and then he had Joe Judge, and then he had Brian Dable. The same thing with Darius Slayton. So maybe there isn't really a foundation to lean back on, because it's like, all right, well, what exactly am I asking for from my teammates when I'm not sure?
Correct.
And then the 2022 team, most of the guys, the cornerstone guys, the Leonard Williams, all those guys that were here are not here anymore. So it's, what is the standard? Maybe nobody's really sure what it is because it's been jumbled
That's
for
correct.
a bit.
That is correct. And that is, I know for a fact that Darius Slayton has a problem with guys who don't commit to the process. I know that Dexter Lawrence does what Dexter does his best, right? When he's disruptive, he leads by example. But the question is, where's the standard? What should the foundation look like, right? Now, the Patriots got away from that, right? They tried the newfangled way, and they figured, you know what? We need to get these guys back centered. We need to get the focus back on where it should be. All the different philosophies, there's one philosophy that wins. That's smart football, that's tough football, that's mentally tough football. And we need to get all of our guys on the same page, including our quarterback. If we got one that we believe in, let's make sure that we put enough people around him that share the same mentality. They have a coach who's been through it, who's unapologetic for the way he coaches and who he is. Don't know if he's ever had a press conference where he's had to be put in a position to defend something.
Well, I think he had the thing with Diggs this summer during training camp. Remember when Diggs was on the boat while he was supposedly rehabbing or whatever? Yeah. I think he had to deal with that, but he shut that thing right down.
And how's Diggs been? A model citizen.
No issues.
For the Patriots. But I don't like when you have to put your coaches and your management in a position where they have to defend you, and what they can come back with is he's just a 21-year-old. That is true. What are you doing to get him to understand that you're hired to do something? You're hired to be a part of change. Every team has these player development departments. They have psychologists, 2 or 3 guys. And again, I don't envy them because they got to deal with a lot of this stuff, right? But I think coming through the door, they have to understand what the expectation is. And there has to be an element of accountability on a weekly basis to make sure, right? Don't think once they assimilate into the locker room, they're going to be fine. You interview these guys pre-draft, and this is the same thing that holds true when I say whatever they do at the coaching position. If that coach can't articulate a plan for your players and your best players, then that's not the guy for you, right? If you're interviewing players pre-draft, and you fall in love with the athlete, better have an idea of what his personality is like. And you might want to let him know that you know what his personality is like, and that if you're selected, here's what our standard is going to be. Here's what you're going to have to be accountable for from day one. You're going to have to be on time. You're going to have to be awake. You're going to have to be engaged, and you're going to have to be the best player every practice, no matter who you are. If these issues have been there and you still decide to take them, then you better lay the groundwork early on, and there better be an element of accountability that you have to articulate to your player development department and your team psychologist to make sure that you can speak a language that this 21-year-old can understand that will get him locked into where you are. There is a generation gap, right? But you know what never changes? The principles of winning. right? The principles of winning never change from generation to generation to generation. It takes commitment. It takes discipline. It takes toughness to win in this game. I've never seen a weak team win a Super Bowl.
No.
Right? I've never seen an undisciplined team win a Super Bowl. Those things are required. It has stood the test of time. Everything else that goes on, you're going to have those elements.
In every sport. Every sport.
Yeah. You can look
those
good
are the
losing.
teams that win.
Yeah. But this is, it's a call to action, man. Like, what is the standard? Who's going to establish it? Or if there's a standard that's already been set, don't run away from it, because you ain't going to be better than that. You're not going to be better than the 4 Super Bowl teams that laid a standard for how Giants football is played, or the guys who coach those teams. That's why New England is where they are right now. Patriot football is back because they're using a standard that was forged during the 2 Super Bowls that I won.
And listen,
you
I would
run
even
away from it.
I would even throw in the teams that didn't win a Super Bowl, but
Correct.
the 2000 team that lost this year, that got to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
I'll talk about the championship teams of 61, 62, and 63 going to 3 straight NFL championships. They didn't win any of them. They should have won the one in Chicago against the Bears. I think that was in 63. They didn't. The one that in 58 that lost to the Colts in the greatest game ever played, but they had won in 56. Like, those were standards, right? Your team from when you came in 84 through 90, like, you didn't win the Super Bowl every year. You won 2 of them, but there was a standard that everybody knew was expected. Now, did they have to eventually change some of the parts? Yeah, they changed some of the parts along the way. But the new parts that came in, we didn't bend the standard for the new parts. We made Jumbo Elliott have to live up to the standard of the 86 offensive line, and so on and so forth.
If you're a new part, then you become part of setting a new standard, right? You fit into that, and then you're an overachiever. You've outperformed where the standard is. Now we raise the bar because of you.
Right. Sean O'Hara was on the 07. Sean O'Hara was on the 07 team. Unfortunately, he got hurt and he had to retire, but he was not on the 11 team. But there was a standard that existed with whoever was going to take his spot on the offensive line. And Kevin Booth came in, and first it was David Boss. Like, there's a real standard. And I feel like I'm not sure where the standard is right now, or what standard they're looking for. But I think at this point, Carl, it's like, knock it, cut it down to the studs, and let's just start with football standard. And that means
blocking,
being on time,
and tackling.
Right. And being on time.
And being on time. Yeah. Blocking and tackling, showing up, right? Being there for your teammates. Don't run away from your history thinking you're going to rewrite it. You're not, because this game is still based on the same things. The same principles apply. They have not changed. Now, the standard is raised based on talent, right? Do I believe that Malik Neighbors is a guy who can raise the standard? Yeah, he is a guy who can raise the standard, right? Of how this game is played and exceeded. He's done it. He's done it in college. He started it doing here before he got injured. I think that Scatterboo, and I think that Jackson Dart, and I think Theo Johnson, is a tight end that we haven't seen as athletic as he's been, but you got to create some consistency to become a star in this league.
Right. You got to be a standard that Hunter Henry has.
Correct.
I'm not saying Kelsey. I'm saying Hunter Henry at this point.
But just, don't run away from that. You got, again, go down to the studs, and here are 4 or 5 tenets. I said it during training camp, that smart, tough, dependable thing, scrub the walls from that, right? There are basics that you got to do. And like you said, part of that is being on time. The blocking, the tackling, it all applies. It's always been that. Get off of blocks, run to the football. This is what makes great teams great. Not the guys who are stuck on blocks, not the guy who wants to go defend his quarterback but not sure how he wants to defend him. I just hate the fact, and I'm done with it, but I hate the fact that when there is I want to call it transgression, or when there's an issue, that you have to put your coaches, your management in a position to say, well, he's just 21. Well, he's just a baby. I would love for them to say, man, this guy's so damn good and he's just 21 years old. Can you imagine 2 years from now what he's going to be? That's when you want them to say he's just 21. He's just learning the game, right? But he's just 21 in order to sanitize professional behavior, right? No, you're hired to do a job. You're professional. Let's ask yourself, what do you want to get out of this, right? Do you want to be great? Are you willing to commit to be great? Not a matter of shit happens. Not a matter of I let my team down. They scored twice while I was out. That should never happen. You should care enough about it that it doesn't. Not the fact that, 21-year-olds do 21-year-old shit. Every team has them, though.
Correct. There's 21-year-olds drafted by a lot of teams. And the thing is, too, Carl, like I said before, I'm not really sure that there is a standard to lean on based on the, everything that's gone on over the past, 7 years or so. But the other thing is, and listen, some of this is going to fall at the feet of the previous head coach, right? I mean, was it firm enough? Was too much let go? Was it a blurred line of what the standard really is or isn't? Or the standard for some people and not for others, and all that other stuff. And you and I can debate this. We could disagree on this, and people could debate me on it. I'm not sure as I'm as believing as the talent that people talk about that's on this roster. But I do know one thing. Whatever is on this roster was good enough to have double-digit leads in all of these games and fourth quarter leads in all these games. Now, well, we could argue back and forth whether this guy's a good player or not a good player. But if there was a legitimate standard and unwavering, you will not be late, you will be on time, you will do this, these are the things that are non-negotiable, they would have won some of those games.
Yeah.
All right, right.
Yeah.
They wouldn't be 11-2 right now. I'm not going to say that, but if there was a baseline standard that everybody understood and was held accountable to as a group, you got to think that at this point in time, instead of 2-11, right? So what is that? 13 games. They're 5-8. They're 6-7. And then we could talk about the talent issues, but because of this,
then you can talk about the talent, yeah.
Right. But the fact that they had all of these leads, whether you want to debate talent, is this guy good? Is it not good? Have they drafted well? The free agents, whatever. It's not like the Raiders or some of these other teams that are just getting whitewashed almost every game, and they're really not that competitive. Against all these first place teams, playoff teams, number one seeds in the conference right now, whatever that they've played, they've actually led in these games. So to me, that's where not having a standard and an unwavering non-negotiable standard. Penalties, false starts, mental errors, being on time, work you're putting in, how hard you're practicing, how hard you're conditioning yourself, whatever you want to use or lump it all into one stew. There's enough talent on this team right now. We should be talking about the bye, about how the Giants are 5-8. They let a couple get away. Here's what we're moving forward to next year, and here's what has to get cleaned up as far as upgrading some talent. There's no way they should be 2-11.
No, they should not. But they are, Bob. And here's the other part when we talk about the players coach type thing. What happens when you have a standard? It's okay, and it's not uncommon for the coach to have his guys, his guys he gives a little preferential treatment. But those guys are normally an extension in the locker room of what the coach wants. They're not the exceptions that get to get away with everything. They're not the teacher's pet. The coach treats them great because maybe the coach doesn't want to be the bad guy, but he's going to support those two coaches' favorites. So when these players, his favorites, go into that locker room and start to F-bomb a few guys and say, we need to do, coach said we need to do this, and we need to do this, and we need, that's what that situation should look like, right? But when you got a couple of guys who get, pat on the head and, become the coach's player, and there's no consistency. These guys is good for me, but not for thee type thing. That's not how that should work. The coach's favorites are normally the guys that are an extension of what he wants to get done. Not the guys who get excused from practice and, they don't have to.
And they're coached hard. They're coached hard through, and that's how the messaging gets through. I mean, we've heard the stories. They're endless about how Belichick in the team meetings would just get into Brady. Now, as Brady got older, I think he got fed up with it a little bit for a bulk of his career. There's a reason why Parcells, when he went to New England, he brought a bunch of Giants with him, like Dave Meggett and a bunch of guys. And then when he went to the Jets, he brought some of those guys with him, Jets guys. There's a reason why Sean Payton has some former Saints that he has on his team, and so on and so forth. Dan Quinn, there's a reason why he has a Bobby Wagner who he knows from his Seattle days when he was there. Guys that I'm going to coach them hard. I'm going to hold them to a really high standard. And if I hold them to a really high standard, everybody else sees that I have to be held to that standard, right?
And those guys, your best guys, will now hold everybody else accountable too.
Correct.
But therein lies the question. What is the standard? You cannot ignore your history, especially if it's good. And you need to lean into that. You don't have to tell somebody that they got to be just like somebody else, but you want to show what made those teams great, right? You can go to the teens, or you can go to the 80s and 90s, wherever you want to start. But when you put on offensive tape, you see a toughness. You see execution. You see attention to detail, right? They may not be as great as some of you, but if you look at Mario Manningham, that whole receiving group, right? Amani Toomer, Plaxico Burress. Look at their execution. Look how they played it, right? You don't have to study everything because everybody's got their own skill set. Then you look at defense. They fly around. They get off of blocks. They don't stay blocked, right? If the standard right now is to not get beat on the edge and not to make plays, then you're playing with the wrong standard. right? If you want to put on a tape and say, see how Carl Banks set the edge, then you just handicapped your player. Put on a tape and say, see how Carl Banks set the edge and made the tackle? Or see how Carl Banks set the edge and then got in on the tackle because his other players were there and he did not stay blocked? That's what a standard is, right?
Right.
If
And
you're
if
not
Carl
being
Banks,
coached that way, then you're being shortchanged. The expectation is not high enough.
right, and Carl Banks or Jesse Armstead or Michael Barrow or Antonio Pierce, I'll just use giant
Correct.
linebackers, Harry Carson, Pepper Johnson. We'll just go through the list.
Yeah.
You guys not only got off the block and pursued the play because you had your teammates back in case they had a misstep, in case they missed a tackle. You were there to have your teammates back. How many times have we watched this year, Carl, where a guy will go and he'll miss a tackle, and that's part of today's NFL. You can watch a game every Sunday. You can watch all the games the tackling that exists now, and that's because of off-season rules and training camp rules and everything else. Tackling is not as good as it once was. Okay, I got that, but there are teams that fly to the ball that have each other's back. How many times this season with the Giants do we see a guy miss a tackle and then there's not really intense pursuit because everybody's just assuming, oh, he's going to get it, and the play's kind of over, and then all of a sudden there's an extra 8 yards because it's just because of hustle.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the standard.
I mean, the standard, Hakeem Nicks is the standard, right? Even Odell Beckham, for whatever he was, when he got on the field, the juice was worth the squeeze.
Oh,
and that's the difference.
4 or 5 years, forget it.
Yeah, the juice is worth whatever you thought about him, and whatever you didn't like or you did like, that guy took the field, the juice was worth the squeeze. He was precise in his route running. He was dedicated to his craft, right? And he wanted to exceed expectations every week, right? He didn't go out just to run the route, right? He went out to run the route and to win the rep. That's the standard, folks. There's enough in your history books, and you ain't got to go to black and white film to see it, right? There's enough in your history books to show you what the standard is. It's not just doing it right, it's winning it. It's winning your rep, right? Oh, look, he set the edge, and then you cut the film off. No, what happened after that? Right? How many other people got to the ball because he did his job, right? Oh, look, Odell Beckham's covered. How'd he catch that? Because it mattered, right?
Right. It's Super Bowl
No
42.
disrespect. No disrespect, Theo Johnson. But when that ball goes in out of your hands, you got to be the Odell Beckham on that, right? Because your team is now down 3, and it's a different ball game, right? You got to win the rep, not give yourself a chance. You got to win it. That's the standard.
Well, I'll give
all
you
of
another
this other stuff is just talk.
I'll give you another thing, like the standard. Tom Coughlin talks about this all the time. Super Bowl 42, end of the first half, things are teetering a little bit. And the Giants fumble it, and the Patriots are basically on the ball. But Ahmad Bradshaw goes into the scrum and steals the ball back.
Yeah.
To keep the possession for the Giants. Coughlin talks about that, like the Tyree play and all that other stuff, the Steve Smith play on the third down. We could talk Justin Tuck getting all these sacks, but Bradshaw going in amongst 3 Patriots and burrowing in there to take that ball and steal it at the bottom of the pile. That's the standard.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what you guys got to do, man. That is where you start. You strip it down to the studs and you see the guys who are committed to it, that take the field and they execute it. And that's where you start, right? You don't have to start with, well, they're a young team. Everybody's got young players, man. Everybody's got them. Don't put your coaches in a position to have to feel like they got to defend what they do.
Your franchise, your logo, that NY and right behind you there, that the franchise has to now defend you for something that they should never have to defend you for.
Right, but it's just not that. And I don't want coaches to have to go out and try to defend either decisions that they make that come into question because nobody really knows what happened, but somebody's got to be assertive and say, well, don't question this because I know what I'm doing, right? Nobody ever questioned whether you know what you're doing, but the story keeps changing. And the fact remains what the fact was, right? I don't want players to have their coaches have to come out and defend themselves or defend some game plan. I don't want players to have a head coach and a general manager say, well, he's 21-year-old. We got it. And we want you to keep it in-house. But we also want you to give a damn about your team so that they don't have to come out and do these things. That's why I say the standard. You have to be part of change, right? There's not a bigger defender of the Giants players. If you got a Giant uniform on, I'm going to always defend you and I'm going to cheer for you. But when you fuck up, I'm going to point that out too. And just because you're a 21-year-old or you're a 23 or 25-year-old or 26-year-old and you think you're going to be upset with me because I pointed out something that most people don't see anyway, that's not who I am, right? I lived in the world of accountability. I was raised in this game in the world of accountability. I want you all to have great success. So when I cheer for you and I defend you and I criticize you, it's all the same energy with me. Whether you want to change your energy is a whole nother issue. I don't care. But I just want a standard set for this organization. And if you can't articulate a plan to ownership of what that standard is going to be, if you can't articulate a plan for the talent that's on the team and a plan for something that needs to be added, you're not the right person. Because we've seen it. Go ahead.
Most of the people that are going to interview for this and get far in the process are going to come in with all of what you're just saying. The question is, are they the right person in the face of pressure to make sure that they enforce it?
Well,
right?
Here's the thing, Bob.
That's going to be and that's a show for the off season.
Yeah, well,
will that person enforce it? Because you could all have a PowerPoint and a plan, but are you?
No, this ain't about a PowerPoint. The most impressive thing and what I love about what John Gruden did and what Brian Dable did in his pre-draft interviews, send a guy to the board, draw this up. What is your decision here? What are you going to do here? I would love for this front office, Chris, Joe, Tim, Brandon, sit up with your coordinators, whoever they're going to be, or your head coaches. What's your plan for these guys right here? I got 3 guys that I don't plan on getting rid of. How are you going to make it work? Show me how it works. And I brought up, because I know how he does it, but he's not the only one, but I brought up Matt Patricia. Because I know if you challenge him and say, show me a game plan here. How does this work? Okay, here's the best offense in football. What are you going to do against this? Show me how these guys are going to be effective and how this guy, Dexter Lawrence, I can create one-on-one situations with him. That's what you have to do in this interview. I don't want to hear any more philosophy. I don't want to hear any more theory. I want the interviewers to present the questions. I want the coaches to be caught off guard. I don't want them to come in with their pretty PowerPoint and show you theoreticals. I want them to go in. I want you to ask questions about this. I want you to ask questions about these guys. I want you to tell me what would you do different with Drew Phillips and Tyler Nubin. Here, come back tomorrow. We're going to give you a second round anyway. Tell me how you're going to use them. That's what you need. Do the same thing on offense. That's all that PowerPoint shit. That's pre-prep, right? That's going to a recruiter and saying, "What do I need to do? Get me ready."
No, but what I'm saying is, come in and put them on the spot.
Yes.
Here's the situation. Forget about X's and O's. Here's the situation, inter-team dynamic, and here's an issue that has just popped up. What do you think the best course of action is?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And if someone comes in and says, "Well, I will cut that down on day one, and I will not." No one gets the benefit of the doubt starting day one. I don't care who you are. Mm-hmm. Well, maybe that's the bait. That's how you start the foundation of a standard, right?
And if I'm the guy who's interviewing, I would look back at Joe and say, "What are you going to do if I say I'm going to bench this guy or I'm going to suspend this guy? What are you going to do? Ownership, are you going to support me here, or are you going to tell me, well, he's 21, let's try to work with him? Well, let's work with him while he's suspended so that when he comes back, I know that he understands what our expectations are."
Well, we're going to have some interesting pods when we get to the off season during this process, for sure. Yep. All right. Enjoy your bye.
Yeah, I will. Glad I was able to get this off my chest.
Well, it's all about the standard. All right. How do we like to end this thing?
The standard. Tell a friend to tell a friend.
Believe in
Giants.